Duh. Subscribe to the channel. The house of Anatoly and his nanny Ilyana was full of work. The house owner and the nanny Ilyana were arranging the room. Father was looking at his son with longing. He was trying to make him happy somehow. Ilyashenka, son, look how beautiful it is. Grandma and Grandpa will come soon. Uncle Vadim with Aunt Mila. They will give you so many gifts. What would you like the most in the world? I am ready to fulfill any desire of yours. Only if you smile. The boy suddenly got excited. His eyes lit up, and he quietly said, "The most in the world, I want to see my mother. I miss her so much. And also to be friends with me, and to walk on my feet. And I don't need anything else." Anatoly almost cried. He came up to the baby, hugged him, and said, "Son, dear, but you know Mom is there in heaven. She sees us and loves us, and she is very upset when you are sad. And you will definitely get up on your feet soon. I promise you. We will play ball in the yard with you, as before. I'll try to come up with something." The boy sighed, shut up, and turned to the window. His eyes were closed again. Anatoly's heart was torn apart. It's been a year since that terrible accident happened that split their lives before and after. And Ilya never came to his senses. And what to do with it, the man didn't know. His hands were sometimes completely down. And before that, everything was completely different. Talik grew up in a wealthy family of businessmen. Therefore, from childhood, his parents gave him a high rank. He studied in a school with a mathematical background. He went to all kinds of developing circles. The child always had pocket money, expensive phone, and fashionable updates. But at the same time, his father was strict enough and did not allow his son to relax and be impudent. It was a feeling of responsibility that was instilling in him. And when Talik began to study at the university and get involved with girls, then his mother began to teach him. She was a woman with big claims. It was not easy to please her. After learning about her son's new novel, she immediately sent her daughter-in-law through her acquaintances' records, and she showed her verdict. However, the girl, on whom Tolek decided to marry and fell in love with her, was surprisingly liked by his parents. She was from a decent family, neither walking nor vulgar, quiet and well-mannered. Mom gave her good, and son married out of love on the same year, Tamara. The love between them was quiet, deep, and real. When Toma got pregnant, the young people were so happy. They were waiting for their son with impatience. The pregnancy went easily and unnoticed. No toxicosis, no impotence, and the births went without complications. Ilyasha was strong. He rarely got sick. He got up early on his feet and went. He was happy for his parents. The family business went from Anatoly to his parents. He owned a small confectionery factory. Their cakes were not cheap, but they were made from natural products and by special recipe. Therefore, they were bought in a moment. They always had long queues. Toma also actively entered the business. She often went to meetings with the culinary metros, took experience, and liked to create new masterpieces. She didn't even leave her favorite business when she was on maternity leave. The birth of the child also did not stop her, and did not cause any trouble for the young mother. Tom often took Ilya with him to the factory when the child grew up. The baby really liked to be there. He was happy and interested to see how cakes were made. And of course, he was fond of them. On that bad day, Tom had to go to work for an hour to see how the process was going. There was an important order, a huge wedding 3-layer cake. It was impossible to cover it. She was a great driver, but she never got worried. She put the child in the child's seat, fastened the seatbelt, and she always followed the rules. That's what saved the baby's life. Tamara's car suddenly started turning, the road got icy, and she crashed into a pole. The seatbelts didn't work for some reason, and the woman hit her head against the windshield. The whole front of the car was in a slump. Tamara died before the ambulance arrived, but the child was not injured. His child's seat was saved, but he went through a lot of stress. After all, his mother died in front of him. After the tragedy, the boy shut up, stopped talking. He screamed at night. But the worst thing is that his legs were taken off. Anatoly was crushed and killed by grief, who fell on him. The funeral of his wife, the longing for her, and the hopelessness. And even with his son, such problems. He often closed his eyes and thought, but why? Who and for what he destroyed his family? After all, he was so happy with Tamara. Why do the heavens take away beloved people, and some scoundrels or killers are alive and healthy? How unfair is that? Talik wanted to lie on the bed, sleep, and never wake up again. After all, in this now reality, there is no longer a beloved Tamachka, and there will never be. Because he was in need of help and support from his father, and he continued to live by pressing his fists and fighting for the health of Ilyusha. Half a year, he was taking the child to various clinics. He turned to the best doctors. He thought that problems with his legs were caused by the trauma of the spine, but all doctors, like one, claimed that the physical child was completely healthy, but the child's psyche was badly hurt. And all the problems were from there. Nobody knew when the child would get up on his feet and recover at all. And it was very scary for the father. Ilyusha suffered so much. He gradually stopped communicating with other children. He did not visit the kindergarten. He sat with his nanny at home for days, only that they went for a walk. Anatoly did not give up. In a year, there was still progress, even if a little. The baby spoke, stopped screaming at night, and was afraid of his father's car. But he never got up. They didn't visit any specialists, from Chinese healers, osteopaths, to folk artists. And it was all pointless. They just carried him by the hands. They said there was no physical reason, only a mental trauma. The body reacted like that. There was nothing to do, and nobody knew when the process would go back. Little Ilyusha, when he was missing his mother, took a teddy bear in his hands, which she gave him, and talked to him as if with her. He hugged him and cried, so bitterly on the brink. He desperately lacked her love and affection. He often recalled how she caressed him, how she kissed him, how she whispered that he was the most beloved son in the world, or how they would lie on the bed together on the weekend before lunch, watching cartoons and eating vanilla ice cream with raspberry jam from a vase. That's today. It was like a birthday, and he was in a bad mood. His son was sad. He loved his dad very much, and he was always there for him. But after that tragedy, the child became completely different. Not like before. Anatoly went to the supermarket. He had to buy more drinks and some small things for the table. And then he was going to pick up his parents and bring them home to his grandson. There was a ridiculous storm outside. You can't see the nipples. And the frost hit -degrees, no less. The man was already leaving the store when he noticed a woman with a child on his arms on the porch. She looked like no more. Dressed poorly, but clean, a thin short jacket and a scarf on her head. Her daughter was also dressed not according to the season. Some old fur coat and a hat from a gypsy woman, slender boots. She shook from the cold and begged her mother. Anatoly felt so sorry for them. He couldn't stand it. He pulled out a large wallet and came up to them. "Excuse me, are you cold with the child? Here, take it, buy yourself something to eat, have a snack. Go into the room, warm up. What are you going to do in such a storm? How will you get back? Buses are almost not running now because of the bad weather. Half of the flights have been canceled. The communal workers are not managing. They don't have time to clean the roads." The woman looked at him with such gratitude. The baby was shaking, very cold. The stranger said, "Thank you very much, it's so nice. Don't you think I'm not a beggar? My name is Natasha, and the girl is Masha. We live outside the city. Didn't have time to leave. We're late for the bus. We were warming up in the store until the guard asked. I can see the bus stop from here. As soon as the bus comes, we'll leave." Anatoly wanted to say goodbye, but then suddenly thought, what if we invite them to his son's birthday? Ilyusha will play with the girl. He dreamed about it. Let the poor people warm up, eat delicacies. It is clear that they barely get over with bread on water. The man glanced at the woman again and decisively told her, "You know what, Natasha? I invite you to my son's birthday with my daughter. He is 6 years old. His name is Ilyusha. I understand that this is an unexpected offer. We don't know each other at all. Consider it my big request. My son doesn't go out, he's ill. It's a long story. Children rarely come to visit him. He is very upset, and so your girl will play with him. You will warm up, eat deliciously, have a rest, and then I will call a taxi for you. So, the code is, your nanny will meet you. I'll call her. I'll call a taxi now. I just have to go to pick up my parents. Don't be shy. Ilyusha is a wonderful, kind boy. Everything will be fine. Natasha was happy, and with joy she accepted the invitation. Thank you very much, Anatoly. I can't feel my feet from the cold anymore. No matter how much my daughter's feet have been frozen. And there is no bus. You are just saving us. Don't worry. We won't be long. We'll greet your son, get warm, and leave. The girl was fluttering. We're going to visit Uncle, aren't we? To play with the boy. What will we give him? Natasha was excited, and it's true. It's not convenient to be a stonebender without a gift. I'll buy a small car right now, or an album with pencils. The man tried to talk her out of it. He explained that Ilyusha had a lot of these cars, but the woman was not inclined, and said that she wouldn't go to visit her child with empty hands. As a result, Natasha chose an inexpensive light-colored scarf with snowflakes in the store, which, when turned over, were so beautifully scattered down, circling around in pleasant music. She was happy and agreed to move in. Anatoly sent Natasha and her daughter by taxi home to himself, not fully understanding how he even decided to do it, and went to pick up his parents. Mom, as always, was going to be long, change her fur coat twice. She had her hair done. Finally, they left. While the mess was going on, an hour had passed. Anatoly didn't tell his parents about Natasha. He decided that it would be the way it was. He knew in advance that his mother wouldn't like the idea of inviting strangers home. She was a woman with complaints, and she was careful with new people, preferring old and trusted people close to her. When Anatoly and his parents came home, he hired an animator in advance, and the funny clown entertained the guests. The guests really liked it. The adults happily sang songs with him, solved riddles and jokes. After all, the prize was given for each correct answer. But the name of the person was not at all interested in the clown. The boy was interested in playing with Masha, the same little girl from the street. They were riding on the floor on a huge, soft, snow-white carpet and playing some kind of game, not noticing anything around. Natasha was sitting on the edge of the table, clapping her hands and watching the guests in the contests. In the background of the rich and the luxurious clothes of her family, she stood out. An old, washed-up water lily in jeans of an incomprehensible color. Her hair was in a regular ponytail. Surprisingly, even in such simple clothes and without a drop of makeup, the woman looked good. She was a cute blonde with big blue eyes and snow white, like porcelain skin. But her daughter was her complete opposite. Dark skin like a gypsy, and her eyes were like coals. Masha was insatiable, funny, and very sociable. She kept telling Ilyusha something, and he got into the conversation. Father couldn't be happier. He hadn't seen his son so happy for a long time. The parents congratulated the grandson, gave him a huge car and a modern children's encyclopedia with beautiful illustrations. The boy thanked the grandmother, and they immediately began to look at the gifts. Anatoly introduced Natasha. Mom, Dad, meet Natalia. We met by chance today, and I decided to invite them to the holiday with my daughter. Just look how happy Ilyushenka is. I think the best gift for him is to talk to the baby. He doesn't even look at the clown. Galina Petrovna didn't share the joy of her son at all, and she talked him out of it right before the visit. Talik, is it really possible? It's extremely unthinkable to invite a few people with a doubtful appearance to visit. And if they are swindlers, it is not known yet how our grandson's communication with the street thug will affect. You are so trusting to me. Natasha became offended and awkward. She blushed and froze. She wanted to go home and ask for help. After all, other guests also glanced at her. No one really talked to her. But Anatoly immediately hugged her mother and said angrily, Mom, I haven't had a child for a long time, and I have my own life. We all came to celebrate your beloved grandson. So why spoil him? I repeat again, Natalia and Masha are my guests, and I will ask you to treat them with due respect. I'd better try our new brand pie with meat and cheese. The chef tried hard for me. I even ordered your favorite cake. Help yourself. The woman shut her mouth and stopped treating Natalia. Education did not allow her to cause a shameless scandal, and her grandson did not want to be upset. But all evening she was unhappy, looking at the uninvited guest. And if she smiled at her son, she even got a little angry. The wise mother decided that later she would talk seriously to Talik again and find out where he had dug up this beggar. It is clear that the son suffers from loneliness, but this is not a reason to drag all kinds of junk from the street home. It quickly got dark outside. Guests began to slowly disperse. The parents also left by taxi. Only Natasha and Masha remained. The woman said quietly, "Thank you for everything, Anatoly. This is the first time I've been to such a party. I really liked it. The clown was so funny. He was great at his work. He was a real professional. He didn't let anyone get bored. And your son is wonderful. He's a smart boy. I think they made a great friendship." Ilyusha suddenly asked her father, "Daddy, please, can Masha stay overnight with her mother? We are now best friends. I am so happy. Please. Today is my birthday, so I can make any wish." Anatoly looked at Natasha. She was embarrassed and confused, and he suggested, "And the truth, why do you need to go at night?" The blizzard did not calm down. "Stay. There are 2 beds in the nursery. Masha and Ilyusha will lie down, and I will sleep in your room. You absolutely do not hesitate to take us with your son." Natasha smiled and replied, "Well, okay, we won't upset the—" And the master in the basement watched as the guest was carefully controlled with the dishes, wiping it to the shine, cleaning it. It was immediately clear that the woman was a housewife, not lazy. The children played a little more. Then Natasha bathed them both and went to bed. The kids fell asleep instantly. I didn't even have to read the fairy tale. The adults also fell asleep. Anatoly was so tired over the day that he also didn't notice how sound asleep. Tomorrow was a day off. He let his nanny go and could sleep at least once a week. Anatoly woke up early, hearing the child's radio call. This meant that Ilyusha woke up too, and he needed help. The man remembered about yesterday's guests and jumped in, but there was no one in the house. Natasha and Masha left. Only the note was on the kitchen table. "Thank you for the holiday. We really liked everything with Masha." The owner of the house was even a little upset, and the son was sad again. But you can't do anything. People have their own life. The week flew by unnoticed. At work in trouble. Every evening, Anatoly watched the same picture. Ilyusha was texting someone on the phone. He was so interested. He often smiled, getting smiles and photos. The surprised father asked more than once, "Son, you have friends? Who are you texting?" But the child immediately hid his phone and mysteriously replied, "Yes, Dad, I now have friends. But this is a secret." And the baby often turned over that gift lamp in the form of a ball. He turned on the music and thoughtfully watched the beautiful snowflakes fall. One evening, when the father and son had dinner, Anatoly saw a plot in the criminal news on TV. The dictator told, a tragedy occurred in one of the residential areas of the capital. The family of famous businessmen of Krasnov was killed. The spouses died at the same time, at night after the anniversary. The presumed cause of death is alcohol poisoning. Their 3-year-old daughter Maria Kravtsova disappeared without a trace. The investigation finds out all the circumstances of this mysterious and confusing case. The child is looking for the police. The man was walking and even dropped the remote. The same girl Masha was in the video who was visiting them the day before. "Dad, there's a girl who looks like Masha. Is that her?" "Wow." They show Masha on TV. And Matoli was in a stupor. "I don't know, son. I hope not. Listen, aren't you talking to Natasha by chance? Tell Dad the truth. I really need to find her to find out everything. Maybe they need help with Masha. They left so unexpectedly. We didn't even say goodbye. I didn't ask them their address or phone number." The boy showed his father a message. And by the photo, the man understood where the fugitives were hiding in the village. In one of the photos sent to Ilya, little Masha was standing next to a huge snowy woman whom they had blinded with their mother. And at the corner of the house, there was a sign, Malaknaya Street. On the internet, he quickly found which nearby village has such a street and house, and decided to go there, ask the woman why she had stolen someone else's child. Anatoly left his son with his nanny and went on his own. The road was slow, barely made it. He found the house he needed on the outskirts of a small village called Sinitsin, but it was impossible to get to it straight from the snow, even on the off-road. He had to leave his car on the street and walk. The house was not very well kept. The windows were old, wooden, the fence was slender. But overall it was kind and spacious. It is clear that the owner used to live here. The path was cleared, and a thin stream of smoke came out of the pipe. It means the owners are at home. The man knocked. The dog barked loudly in the yard, and the shadow flickered outside the window. But no one opened the door for a long time. Anatoly again knocked louder. He was not intended to give up and leave with nothing. Since he does not open, there is something to be afraid of. Finally, a frightened Natasha appeared on the door. She looked around, as if she was afraid of someone, and Anatoly let go with a gesture. It was warm in the house. Masha was playing with a doll on the bed. She saw a guest and smiled, waved her hand. She clearly recognized. "How did you find us?" Ilyusha told. "Oh, I shouldn't have written to him. I wanted to support the baby so that he would not feel lonely. And so I called trouble." Anatoly did not become Juliet and asked in the forehead. "Natasha, why did you steal someone else's child?" "I know everything. All the channels are calling about the death of businessmen in Krasnov. Masha was shown a large plan, and she is being searched. Tell me the truth, please. Maybe I can help you. You won't be able to hide here for a long time anyway. Someone from the neighbors will find out about the baby and call the police." The woman cried. Her hands shook. She read, "Let's not be here. Let's go to the kitchen so that Masha doesn't hear." Having sat at the table, the woman began. "This is my daughter. I gave birth to her 3 years ago. Anatoly didn't believe me. You're lying. Masha doesn't look like you at all. She's a different guy. If you don't tell the truth, I'll call the police myself. Why do you need this girl? What did you plan to do with her? Tell me." Natasha grabbed him by the hand and almost screamed. "Don't go to the police. I beg you. They'll give her to the shelter. I'll tell you everything. I'll start from the very beginning so that you understand everything. This is my home. I was born and raised here. My mother worked as a cattleman all her life. But my father is a hero. He passed through hot spots, Afghanistan and Chechnya. He had a lot of rewards. Our dog Mukhtar, who lives in the yard, is his front-line loyal friend. He saved him once, a very small one. The puppy was wanted to be put to sleep. He is not a purebred German, but a Pomer. But my father complained and did not allow. He took it to himself, and he started training him with the team, teaching. He was a filmmaker. And you know, from Mukhtar we got such a smart, search dog, better than any other pure-blooded. Our dog found people under rubble and saved them. Dad is not here for many years, and Mukhtar serves us with faith and truth. He is so smart, knows all the teams, kind. But he is old, almost blind. When Dad died, I was just finishing school. For us and my mother, it was a terrible blow, a great grief. Without him, the house immediately became desolate, and the material became very tight. My mother's salary was not enough for life at all. I left for the capital after school for a job. In the village, you can't find a normal job, even though my mother was against it. She always believed that in a big city, only shame and destruction were old conditions. She even dreamed of marrying me for the son of the local tractor driver Proker. But he was so stubborn, stupid, ugly, and I ran away. And my mother was very upset with me. I got a job at Krasnov's house, also for protection. One woman from our village brought me to an agency for personnel selection. She herself worked as a cook in some rich family. So she helped me get a job. My mother asked her to do it. Krasnov's people turn out to be good, not scandalous. They paid well and well. I wasn't lazy either, I tried. In general, I was very happy with my work. A few years flew by unnoticed. A couple of times a month, I went to my mother's house. I helped her, I missed her very much. And then the family came back to us. They didn't wait for us. My mother got very sick. I began to notice that she was losing weight. She was sleeping a lot. She sold the farm. It was not in her power to look after him. But we wrote it all off for chronic fatigue. I brought her all the imported vitamins, but they didn't help. Then I couldn't stand it and took her to the capital to the doctor. There, everything was clear. We needed a lot of money for treatment and surgery. Mom panicked, fell into despair. She understood that we would never be able to raise such money. and I promised her that I would find the money and save her life. This thought did not give me peace. I spent the day and night thinking about it. How can I save my own loved one? I didn't go there alone, I cried. Of course, the owners noticed it. Nadezhda, the owner's wife, found out what my problem was. I begged them to take the money. After all, no one gave me the loan. The spouses thought, and then offered me to become a surrogate mother. They couldn't have had a child for many years. The spouse had problems, but at first I couldn't agree with the idea that I would have to give the child. And it's kind of wild. Okay, if I already had children, maybe it would be easier. But giving birth to a baby didn't fit in my head. But my mother was getting worse, and I agreed. I didn't have a choice. I was lucky I got pregnant right away. The wife of the owner of the stocking was carrying it, allegedly on the account. The doctor was bribed, and I didn't appear on People all pregnancy so that no one. The kids were also going home. The businessman made everything. As soon as I was born, they took my baby away from me. They didn't even let me feed it. And I was so sick of it, I even got into the loop. You can't imagine what it means to carry a baby in yourself, to feel it, to give birth to it, and then to give it back. How difficult and painful it is. They paid me as it should be, without cheating. And of course they fired me from the sin, taking the note that I would never and under no circumstances. I won't look for a child and interfere in the life of my spouses. And the girl was recorded on them, as if this was the hope she had borne that night. So officially I am Masha Nobody. I returned to the village, not myself, my eyes in a wet place. I was as if thrown out like a fish and thrown ashore. But I tried to cheer up. There was no time to get angry. I had to fight one more time for the life of my mommy. Mom was taken to the hospital. We fought for a year, did the surgery. It seemed to be getting better, but no. The body couldn't handle another chemotherapy, and she died in my arms. I confessed to my mother before she died. Where did I get that money? I couldn't bear such a sad heart anymore. She cried for a long time and said, "Sin is a daughter, a great sin. A child with a mother should be, and a mother is the one who gave birth. My poor girl, you broke your life because of me, and it's all in vain." These last words of hers never crossed my mind. Everything was mixed in my soul. The pain of losing my mother, loneliness, longing, and the mad desire to see my baby. I was like a robot, standing like a mechanism, walking in a farm's canteen, working as a cook there. And in the evening I gave my will to the feelings. I was crying until midnight. And so, almost all the time, I suffered a lot, could not sleep. All the children dreamed, and my baby. I thought all the time, how is she? What happened? How does she live? And so a week ago I could not stand it. I confused the mess. I decided to go to the Krasnovy house. I thought I would fall on my knees, I would pray, to see my daughter for a minute, to look at her with one eye. I waited for a long time at the apartment. Nobody opened. And then the door suddenly gave in. It was not locked. I found my old children's things at home. I started living here. Surprisingly, Masha didn't cry at all, either because of the shock or the stress. She doesn't know and doesn't understand yet that Mom and Dad are no more. She asks when they will come back. She calls me Aunt Natasha. I had to lie that I am a mother's friend. I know, I did a terrible thing. I had to call the police and not steal Masha. But then I would be definitely accused of murder, and my daughter was baked in a shelter. Is it better? I don't know what to do next. I'm completely confused. But I understand one thing. I will not give Masha to anyone, even if I have to die. I carried her under my heart. She is my daughter and this businessman. After all, his spouses could not take the egg cells. Anatoly grabbed his head and read. Well, they turned the case, Natasha. You can understand humanly, of course, but you got into a very difficult, tricky situation. The police will hardly understand. You are the last one who saw the deceased spouses. Your fingerprints must have been found there. And no matter how you look at it, under the documents of Masha, their daughter. And you stole her. And how to prove the opposite is a big question. And you also have a motive for murder. And what else? You have to think hard. But he didn't have time to agree on how someone broke the window with a stone and 2 head cutters broke into the house. Natasha didn't understand anything at first and started screaming. Did you bring the police? Yes. I won't give it to Masha. Come here, honey. Come to me. Come to my hand. The girl got scared and climbed into Natasha's arms without talking. She hugged her tightly. One of the bandits yelled, "Here she is, the snotty heir. We don't need her alive. And we can use her as a woman to know how to spoil everything." They tried to take the baby away, but Anatoly stood up to protect them. The bandits shouted, "Who is this? Where did you come from, smartass? You'd better not get involved in this story, or you won't get anything." But the man couldn't leave a woman with a child in such a critical situation and threw himself with fists at the bandits. He remembered his karate lessons and the struggle in childhood. The fight began. The man fought like a lion. He was not from the... "Where did you come from, little defender? Sonia, get that mad dog away. She bit my leg. Hit him." The neighbors made a noise and called the district police. And 3 strong men with the vials also got involved in the fight. After all, there is no trouble in the village. Everyone is in a hurry to help. Soon the district police arrived at the UAZ. All the participants of the fight were taken to the department, including Natasha. Anatoly was taken to the hospital. And Masha was taken to the shelter until all circumstances were resolved. The girl was crying. She was barely pulled away from Natasha. She hugged her by the neck and screamed, "And Natasha, don't leave me, I'm scared." The woman was crying too, because she thought she would say goodbye to her daughter forever. Now she definitely won't get out of prison. All the dogs will hang on her. She whispered to her, not remembering herself, "Masha, know that your mother loves you very much and will never forget you. You are the most beloved and dear girl in the world." Anatoly was in a critical condition and was taken to the hospital. He only managed to call his nanny while he was conscious. "Uliana, my bad. I am wounded. I am being taken to the 3rd City Hospital. Be safe and sound. I beg you. I have no one else to rely on." The woman screamed and began to rumble around the house, to collect the owner's things, the things he needed in the hospital, and to look for documents. She was crying by the will. Ilyusha got worried, because her father was gone for a long time. And she asked, "Nanny, tell me what happened. Was it Dad who called? Why is he gone for so long? I'm afraid. Are you going somewhere? Don't leave me alone." The woman pressed the boy to her, kissed him in the crown, and began to moan. "Ilyushenka, don't worry. Dad got sick. We'll call a taxi and go to visit him. You need to concentrate so you don't forget anything. Do you want me to take you to your grandmother? And you'll stay with them for a while. Why do you really need to go to the hospital?" The boy was turned straight on his head. "No, first to Dad. I want to see him." "Nanny, Dad won't die, will he? I'm so scared." Uliana again began to calm the baby, although she was worried about her own heart. "What are you talking about, Ilyusha? Of course he won't die. The doctors will treat him and send him home. We can't be mad at you now. We need to support your dad." The boy was so worried about his dad. He was nervous all the way. He twisted his button on his jacket. He almost tore it off. Most of all in the world, little Ilyusha was afraid to lose his father. After Mom's death, he was for everyone, the closest and most dear person to him. Uliana and the boy waited long in the hospital corridor. Finally, the doctor came to her and told her, "Don't worry, everything is fine. The wound has been stitched. There is no danger for life. Well, soldier, get up. Your dad will get better soon. Don't cry." The boy quietly asked, "Can I see him, please? I want to see my dad." And the baby cried again, unable to cope with emotions. The doctor's heart was shaking. The daughter had grown up, and he allowed her to. Well, as an exception, come into the room for a while. Uliana took the child in the room in a wheelchair. Anatoly was lying on the bed, pale and confused. His hand and shoulder were bandaged. When Ilya saw this, he suddenly jumped into the wheelchair and went to his father, shaking his legs. He jumped him in the arms and cried again. "I was so scared. Don't go away for so long. Don't leave me. I am scared." And the rumbling Anatorium couldn't believe and read, "Son, God, you finally got up from this damned chair. I don't believe it. Come on, dear, go on, please, Dad. I'll get better soon. Fortunately, did we really wait for this? Or I just now realized that he can walk like before." The boy got up from his bed and walked around the room, First slowly with small steps, and then faster and faster. He was happy and shouted, "Daddy, I'm walking like before. Now I can run with the kids and play ball." Ileana also prayed and cried. She knew how the owner was worried about her son's illness, how much effort and patience he put in for him to become the same again. She read, "Oh my God, our prayers have reached you." Ilyasha went with her feet. What a joy! Anatoly slowly went to the hospital. His son visited him every day with his nanny. But there was a difficult conversation with his parents. After finding out about what happened to his nanny, they immediately rushed to the hospital. Mom kissed her son and read, "Oh my God, Talik, how can this be? We don't seem to have enemies in the company. And it's not the 90s now. Did the competitors really get to such a low level? They made a mess. I hope you told the police about it." Tolik insisted, "My job has nothing to do with it. I'll tell you everything now, but you will hardly like it." When Claudia Simonovna found out how and for whom her son was hurt, she began to get angry. "And I told you. I warned you that these street acquaintances are not good for anything. Why do you need someone else's problems? If they took Natasha to the police, it means that she was killed for something. Maybe she killed those businessmen. Don't get into it." And so into the ear. But then Anatoly couldn't stand it. "Mom, how can you say that? You taught me since childhood that you need to help people if trouble happens. I believe Natasha, and I will help her. Clear? Do you like it or not? You don't know her at all, and you already draw conclusions and accuse her of murder. What if you hadn't seen me for years? Wouldn't you go to everything to find out how I live? What about me? You, as a woman, should understand her. Yes, Natasha did her job, but it's only because she missed her own daughter. She was missing her. I can't imagine what would have happened to me if Ilyasha hadn't been around. Children are the meaning of our lives, and for them, we are all capable of any madness. I'm on your side, son, and I'm proud of you. You were not afraid of the headcutters and protected a woman with a child. This is worthy of respect. I feel it in your words. You liked it, Natasha, didn't you? You wouldn't be so angry to protect her if she was completely indifferent to you. Listen to yourself and do as you know. The main thing is to get better soon. We were very scared for you." It was very important to him now, and it calmed Mom down, that all the worst is already behind, and the police will sort it out as it should, and punish the guilty, and he is not threatened by anything else. Claudia Semyonovna hugged her son on the farewell, and even more hated this poor girl in her heart. It is not clear where the sun fell on his head from. Some are sad about her. One was happy. The grandson stood on his feet. The man decided that he would help poor Natasha to get out of the dungeon, where she agreed to do her own stupidity. But it was impossible to do it himself. Then he decided to hire a lawyer so that he could protect the interests of women in court. After all, so far everything was against her. The theft of the child, the concealment of crimes, or maybe the cooperation in it. Those two headcutters who attacked them went to the refusal and remained silent. They were not going to cooperate with the investigation. It was only known that one of them was the cousin of the late businessman Krasnov, a.k.a. Igor Lukin, and the second one was his accomplice, a former civil servant Leonid Vasilyev. Anatoly didn't hesitate and hired the best lawyer in the city, Efim Abramovich. He had hundreds of successfully completed difficult cases. It was he who gathered all the information to prove that Natasha and Masha were the ones who conducted the genetic test. And it showed that they were really the mother and daughter. And this was already half of the success. And Kim Abramovich, with amazing dedication, asked all the participants of that evil banquet, after which the businessman died, and restored the chain of events by minutes. Many remembered that it was Igor who brought that very cognac. His late spouses drank it. Other guests preferred wine or champagne. The lawyer was on the search in Igor Lukin's house. They turned everything over there and still found the hook. One drug that causes paralysis of the respiratory system in large doses. Upon finding the trace, Efim Abramovich insisted on a repeated autopsy. He brought his experts, and they found in the body of Krasnov's the remains of that very substance. It turned out that the cousin decided to kill the whole family and thus enrich. Only the baby was in his way. He immediately decided not to get rid of her. He thought after the death of his spouses to hire a girl as a caretaker and then finish what he started, but it didn't go according to his script. The girl disappeared. Having such facts in his hands, the investigation pressured Lukin to Igor. And the one who realized that he would not turn away now was sincere in everything. Our father and Oleg, although they were brothers, but there was a gap between them. One became rich, and my father became poor. That's the injustice. I hated Oleg from childhood. Well, Oleg's studies were organized in a prestigious university, and Dad brought business to the table. Live and rejoice. And he even took away his beautiful wife. They gave birth to an heir at the age of old, and then it happened. And I didn't ask him to join the company. He didn't. He said, "You can't think of anything worse than working with relatives you can't take care of the trouble." He taught me everything in life, and I didn't give up his advice for 100 years. I didn't want to work as a simple manager all my life. That's not fair. And then I lost a lot in the cards. They promised to let me go on the belt if I didn't pay the debt. So I came up with a way to solve all my problems with one stroke. And I would have succeeded if not for this stupid who took the girl out of the nose and her defender. Where did they come from? The investigator was amazed by Igor's cruelty. He doesn't regret killing his brother and his wife with his own hands. He asked, "How did you find Natalia? How did you find her address?" Igor laughed. "It's a military secret to me, too. My accomplice was watching this apartment. He was waiting for the moment to call the police. So he remembered this Molo Kalina well. And he followed her. And then we decided to take the girl. I don't understand why she is this woman. So we entered the house. But we didn't know that she was not alone. Faggot put his car away. So our plan failed. And this man and that woman ruined such a combination for me." The investigator was amazed by the cynicism and cruelty of this bastard. He asked, "Don't you feel sorry for your brother and his wife, whom you killed and who planned to kill the child? Is all this for money?" Igor nodded. "Yes, you understand a lot. If it weren't for this chicken, I would have been rich in a year, and I don't care what the price is." The investigator shook his head, "Though I'm talking about conscience. But it's okay. You're being brought up in the zone quickly. You'll be repenting every day. You'll find your way there." They finally let Natasha go. Anatoly met her at the gates of prison. The woman looked lost, leaning over. She was so happy when she saw her savior and rushed to him. "Thank you for coming. Otherwise, I would be in some kind of trance." You can't even imagine how scary it was. I was completely desperate. At first, the investigator pressed me to confess to the murder. And I decided, I don't want to get out of here anyway. Let it be rotting, but I won't take anyone else's sin on myself. I was stubborn and didn't care. And I miss my daughter very much. How is she in the shelter? Poor thing. Such a shock to a child. First, my parents died. Why did they fall for such a poor girl? How can I explain to her that I am her mother? What if her daughter is someone else's? And then I will never find her again. Natasha was crying, and Anatoly was calming her down as best he could. He was stroking her thin shoulders. Well, it's all over. Everything will be fine now. You have been released. They don't suspect anything. There is genetic evidence in your hands that Masha is your own daughter. Now it remains to prove your rights as a mother and prove that Masha is, nevertheless, the only legitimate heir to businessman Krasnov. You know what? Let's go home. Ilyusha will be happy. You will rest and come to your senses a little. And then we will go to Masha's shelter. We will visit the girl. You have nothing to do alone in this house, even with the windows knocked out. And more. Let's get married. After all we've been through together, it's strange to get to know each other. The woman suddenly got nervous. Talik, I forgot to say the most important thing. Thank you so much, human, for saving us then with our daughter. If it wasn't for you, they would have taken Masha for sure, and they probably killed me. Oh, I dragged you into history. I lived my life in a bad way, and suddenly I fell head over heels with my problems. The man smiled. Nothing in life is done just like that. If it weren't for your problems or my injury, Ilyusha wouldn't have stood up. He walks by himself now. Finally, we threw out this hateful, disabled chair. My son was so worried about me that he went himself. Get up from the disabled chair. Can you imagine? It's such a happiness for me. And in general, I like you very much, Natasha. And as a person and in general, after my wife's death, I didn't look at women at all. I thought I would never be able to love my Temechka. But I look at you and admire you. They went to the mansion of Anatoly. Mukhtar, happily wagging his tail, immediately rushed to the mistress. He began to lick her and bark. The woman cried, kissed his wet nose, and recited, Mukhtar, Mukhtarchik, my dear, how are you here? Alive? Thank God. How glad I am to see you. Thank you, Tolia, for the dog to shelter. I didn't even hope to see him alive. I was afraid to ask. He has served us faith and truth for so many years. My father saved him many times during the war, and now he's trying to protect me with his chest. The man replied happily, but could I allow such a glorious, faithful dog to die? He was wounded, just like me, but the doctors saved Mukhtar, lured him. I ordered him to take him home. What could he do alone in the village? Don't worry, he's fine here. The aviary is spacious, warm. I feed him like in a sanatorium. We became very close friends. Ilya doesn't leave him at all. Ilya was very happy to have guests. Now he runs around and jumps. He also asked about Masha. Where is she when she comes? Natasha's eyes were filled with tears again, and she answered, Soon I will definitely take Masha from the shelter and will not give it to anyone else. Natasha enjoyed a hot shower, had dinner, played with Ilya. It was time to go to bed. It was late. And at night, she again had the same sticky nightmare that regularly pursued her for 3 long years. She shrugs, shouts, it hurts so much, and then such relief as if emptiness is inside. The child's cry. She raises her head in the hope of seeing her baby, so she wants to hug her. But the baby is taken away right away. The breast is torn apart from the milk, and the eyes are swollen with tears. And Natasha screams, No, no, my daughter. Anatoly heard a scream from his bedroom and got scared. Something happened, or he needed help. He quietly entered the guest room. Natasha was swinging around the bed as if in a fever. Her hair stuck to her forehead. She shouted out the name of her daughter and cried. The man started to wake her up, breaking and whispering, Natasha, wake up, you're crazy, come on, it's just a bad dream. The woman finally opened her eyes and looked at her with fear. She was embarrassed that she had scared the owner. And he also saw her half-naked in one thin night. Adelik looked at Natasha in the same night with embroidered vasilkas that he once gave to Mara. She never had time to put it on. Blood boiled in her veins. He suddenly pressed her gently, like a child, and began to kiss carefully. First in the neck, then in the lips, and whispered, You are so beautiful now. So dear. You drive me crazy. Please, never leave this house again. I don't want this. Don't cry, honey. We will definitely take Masha. And we will all live together as one big and friendly family. The little heart of Natasha was ready to jump out, but she did not resist and answered with a kiss at the confession of Talik. After all, her miserable life never had love, not counting one skinny village cavalryman. And then everything went so fast. The move to the capital, births, mother's illness and death. There was no love. She didn't believe in her own happiness. The next day, Natasha and Anatoly went to visit Masha. The headmaster was upset at first and didn't want to let them in. She said that strangers are not allowed. But when she saw the results of the genetic test, she changed her tone and got into the room. She brought the girl. The poor baby got even thinner and slimmer. I saw Natasha and immediately rushed to her. I got on her arms and started hugging her by the neck and crying. Aunt Natasha, did you come for me? Take me away from here. It's bad here. Girls are insulting me. They fight and take away my toys. The child cried bitterly, and the woman's heart broke into pieces. She kissed her cheeks, wiped her eyes, cleaned her sweet tangerine, and whispered, I'll take you away, I promise. I won't leave you here. My baby, my poor girl. Masha was looking at me. Aunt Natasha, where are my parents? Why don't they take me home? I want to go home. Don't they love me anymore? The woman's heart was pounding. She wanted to shout, I'm your mother, my dear. But Anatoly stopped her and started telling the girls. What's wrong with you, Masha? Dad and Mom love you very much. Is it possible not to love such a wonderful girl? But it so happened that they are now very far away, and cannot come back from there. And Natasha, and I love you very much. And Ilyusha misses you so much. We'll take you to ourselves for now. You will play with Ilyusha again. Walk like then, on his birthday. Remember? Will you come to live with us? The baby nodded and again pressed on to the trusted Natasha. She took her to the children to distract the head of the family. Anatoly tried to talk her out of it. But you can see how the girl is trying to get to us. She's not well. She's a homeborn child. Let her stay at our home while I'm responsible. I'm a businessman with a good reputation. You've probably eaten our cakes at Lada and Caucasus. We'll get the papers ready tomorrow with the lawyer. And Masha is the heir of Krasnov. After all, she is his daughter. But why is Masha suffering here and waiting for us? The manager decided to go to see Anatoly and allowed Masha to stay while he was at home. The cheerful man entered the game room and grabbed Masha by the hand. Well, doll, I agreed. We're taking you right now from here. Are you ready? The girl happily clapped her palm and shouted, "Hooray! I'm going to Natasha, and I won't eat the disgusting stewed cabbage anymore. It's so not tasty." Ilyusha was very happy that his girlfriend now lives with them. After all, it's more fun to do everything together in the world. And play, and eat, and run on the runways. Natasha quickly got used to watching the two shoot at once. Ilya, after mom's death, lacked so much female warmth, attention, affection. And he himself pulled himself to Natasha. Tolia had already forgotten how great it is when your beloved woman is waiting for you at home. Children, a table, and a satiety dinner. He couldn't be happier and tried to take care of his now big family. The lawyer knew his case, and a month after the nerve-wracking and the court of the Mars. So out of poverty, she became a rich woman at one point. Now, Anatoly's mother didn't look at her from above. On the contrary, her parents brought her daughter-in-law, brought her granddaughter, and began to often visit her son. Natasha was almost happy, if not for one thing. She suffered and didn't know how to tell the truth to the girl. That the mother she lived with was not her mother, but her father died. And the real mother she is. Can you explain this to a 3-year-old child? The woman decided to consult Talik. They thought for a long time, and then he said, "Honey, I understand how you can't wait for Masha to call you mom. How important it is for you. But she's still too young to understand and accept such heavy news about parents. What if she closes? Do you remember that Ilyusha had a stress attack? Children are very vulnerable. Their psyche is not ready for this yet. You don't have to hurt the child. I'm asking you. Just love her with all your heart. And over time, you will become a mother for her. Time heals. It erases everything bad from memory. The daughter will grow up, go to school. Then we will tell her everything. Be patient, my good one. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine." Natasha hugged her beloved and agreed. "You're so wise. I am lucky. You're right. It's better not to worry about our daughter. We'll just live, love our children, and whatever happens there." Time went by, years flew by, and Ilyusha is already in the 3rd grade, leading the sister Masha, the cheerful first grader, by the hand. Natasha waves her hand and sends an air kiss, and Masha shouts to her, "Bye, Mom. And will Daddy bring the cake from work today? My favorite, with strawberry cream." Well, we ran away. Natasha looked at her beloved Naposita, but already completely adult Ilyusha, and so warm and good on the soul became. How she loved her babies. Masha has long called her mother herself. She no longer asked about her parents, and everyone was happy. Now Natasha was not a beggar, but a businessman's wife. She looked very expensive and well-groomed. She found her calling, helped her husband in production. She literally worshipped her husband and thanked heaven for the fact that they then faced each other. After all, it was Talik, as a good wizard, who turned her miserable life into a fairy tale.